We're now live, Chair.
All right, thank you very much. Welcome everybody to the first place scrutiny of this administrative year. I think we've got a couple of new faces on the panel. Most of the people I think are the usual suspects, but I think we've got Paul Bellinger. You're new, aren't you, Paul? On this panel?
I am, Chair, yes.
And Guy Beach, you're new. Have I missed anybody? No. And while I'm doing that, can I just have some thanks recorded for Josh Fenton, Glyn and Sue Holsworth, who both contributed excellently to the previous board during the last administrative year. I'll just go with the agenda. Have we got any apologies for absence?
Yes, we do, Chair. Councillor Smith has sent his apologies and Councillor Riveron is substituting for him.
Good evening, Councillor Riveron.
Good evening.
Good evening. Have we got any declarations of interest? No, I'll take that as a no. Admission to the public, as far as I know, people can join in, can they? There's any public here, are there? But I don't know any reading. Has everybody seen the minutes from the previous meeting? I know it's a long time ago. I'm sure they were riveting read. Has anybody any problems with them, or are we happy with them? No. Can I take those read and approved, please? Okay. Right. Before we launch into the main agenda, I'm just going to say before we start that, because some members will be aware of it, some won't. I'm sure some officers are. There's been some emails flying about air quality reports and the validity of thereof, and whether they've been consulted on properly at registry. So what we're going to do is at the end of this meeting, because there's quite a lot of pressure to have this matter discussed at some time, is put it on the work plan. I'm relying on you, Ian, for some guidance on how we'll do this, but presumably if you just bring it up under work plan, we can put it onto a scheduled meeting day. Is that right?
That would be more than appropriate, Chair, yes, if it's considered under that item on the agenda, yeah.
Right, okay, well, we'll do that then. Because it's just been quite contentious, as you're aware. Right, if we can move on to the first item, can I just say again before I do that my concentration span in a meeting is about 2 hours. So can you just bear that in mind, just for my mental health?
Yeah. Chair,
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, Chair. Are you aware of the email that was sent out by Minnie Schofield at 5:30 regarding that controversial topic that's been going around about the air quality?
Can I just say, Councillor Bellinger, that I have had emails from Friends of the Earth, various councillors, Minnie Schofield, and a whole host of other people. So yes, I am aware of it. I won't say I've read them all, because there's quite a lot of them, and some have 5 or 6 attachments, and some I didn't get till 4 o'clock. So the answer is yes, but the answer is I can't comment because I generally haven't had time to read them. I had some earlier in the week, as I've alluded to. I know it's a contentious subject, but I've discussed it with about as eyes up as I can go, and it cannot be on this agenda tonight, and it has to wait until the bit at the end about work plan. And beyond that, I can't really comment. Now, that'll satisfy some folk, but not others, but I can't really do any more than that. So, if we could, but thanks for the question anyway, if we could move on to the first item, which I think is a petition from, is it Councillor Baker, Fix Our Streets?
It is, Chair. Yeah, and I'll.
Yeah. Can I just say, it doesn't. I've just read this, and I read it earlier on, but it's more of a statement than it is a petition, because it's not asking for anything as such. Is it just?
That's not the case. That's not the case, Chair. The petition had 2 requests, which
Yeah, I know,
weren't
I'm-
actually picked up
I
in
think-
the response by the department, but they're in the petition that was submitted. I'm happy to read those out.
Well, no, I'm going to say, because if you read the minutes, it looks like a statement rather than a petition. I'm just clarifying that there is more to it than just the last word control. Is that right?
There is, Chair. Yeah, as the petition
Yeah.
was submitted, it had two direct requests in it for the authority,
Right.
which are
Okay.
actionable.
Okay. Well, if you want to fire away and give us the opening salvo, then we'll put it to discussion.
Thanks. And I'll try and respect what you said about keeping it brief and go through it at a reasonable pace. So in terms of the actual actions that this petition asks of the council, obviously it's about road repairs, potholes and the state of the roads in Calderdale. That has been a concern to the 541 residents who signed the petition. In terms of the actual ask of the authority, the petition calls for more investment in the latest technology, such as JCB's pothole machine that came out in January this year, and for higher quality of the repairs that are being currently undertaken, because a lot of kind of the whack and pack quick repairs that are happening at the moment. It also calls for proper investments in our roads, and it requests the council undertakes a cost analysis to explore if borrowing for a larger capital programme, such as the £100 million scheme that Stockport Council undertook to capitalise their road maintenance programme, would be appropriate to replace the roads here in Calderdale, whether that would be more effective to repay that borrowing that it would constantly doing up the repairs and patching the older roads that we have here in Calderdale. So they're the two actual requests of the petition. The third point in the petition was about to lobby the government around the cut to the capital programme that we've seen this year for local authorities such as ours. There were just one or two comments from residents that came along with it. Quite a lot of people who signed it were from cyclists and motorcyclists, for whom, you know, potholes aren't just an inconvenience, but they're actually a real safety issue, because if you go over a pothole on a bicycle or a motorbike, then you're likely to do yourself serious injury. So gentleman here has asked that he's extremely concerned. He feels more vulnerable now than ever when riding his motorbike. The repairs that are currently being made are substandard. As you all know, he said the repairs are bad. When driving a car over them, it's bad, but riding a motorcycle over them, it's truly shocking, and the motorbike becomes unsteady. This is made worse at night time. Generally speaking, the headlights on motorbikes aren't as good as cars. He's now not only having to watch for potholes and ruts, but also trying to avoid the poor repairs as well. He says he believes motorcyclists are often forgotten about when the repairs are carried out, and the impact these repairs have on motorbike stability. Someone else saying, if the council wants from someone called Sandy, if the council wants to promote cycling, then it appears it does. The roads must be swept very regularly to remove hazardous rubbish. Also be pothole and sink free. So they say the local geography is enough of a problem without the additional hazard caused by the number of potholes. Someone else saying they suggest that members of the panel have a look up Denfield Lane that's just been resurfaced. He said it was bad before, but the repair has made it worse. Does anyone check on the work after it's been completed, or just hand out payments? It's the worst tarmac lane they've ever come across, they say, and the contractors should be made to rectify the terrible workmanship. They obviously have no pride in the job, and how the repair work can leave the road resurface worse than when they started is unbelievable. So a lot of the complaints people sign a petition about the quality of repairs that have been undertaken as well. As I said, there's a lot of whack and pack jobs going on where surfaces aren't being sealed. It's about the cheapest repair that you can do to fit a pothole, and I do appreciate the council has to do it within the statutory 21 days or whatever, but what we're really calling for is look at investment of the new technology on investor save treatment. I did circulate a document to members which includes some of the latest technologies. So as mentioned, there's the JCB Pothole Pro that came out in January this year after undergoing trials in England for 8 months. Bedfordshire Council is using some of the jet patcher technology. I think we have had one of those temporarily used in Calderdale. Brent Council undertook a 2-year programme using velocity patching, and what they've actually said is their new methods of doing potholes has also reduced the carbon footprint of repair methods as well. So using some of these machines could help with that. Northamptonshire is using the thermal patching machine, the Roadmaster jet machine, and Devon County Council has something excitedly called the Dragon Patcher, which they're using to blast potholes in Devon. So what I'm asking for this evening really is for our officers to go away, have a look at what some of this new technology, whether it is cost effective for us to use in Calderdale on a kind of investor save basis. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Steve Lee, do you want to come back on that and just let us know where you are? I mean, it's mainly about looking at new investment, how to mend potholes better, so we are doing it all the time. I mean, I think there's a lot of sympathy with this petition from across the borough and probably across party as well. So it's obviously contentious, but I think we would look at some of the councils who have got some state of the art ways of doing potholes, and we're still to be doing whack and pack type, which just pop out all the time. So if you've got an answer to that, Steve, we're pleased to hear it. Thank you.
Absolutely, Chair. I'll just come back on two of those points. The capital programme is due to go to Cabinet on the 7th of June, and included in that report, there is £200,000 specifically for the types of innovation that Councillor Baker's talking about. We are aware of the other machinery that other authorities use. In terms of the jet patcher and the velocity patcher, they have been trialled before and we've had mixed results. And basically, the way that they work is very similar to a pack and whack, only they're operated under power of air. But the one that we're actually looking at is the JCB planer. So effectively, it's a watch this space. There's £200,000 in the capital programme to fund one next year, and we do hope to introduce that innovation. In response to Denfield Lane, Denfield Lane is only partially complete at the moment. It's only the binder course that's been implemented. So on June the 21st, we will put in what's called millipave, which is a treatment specifically to address concrete roads, and then the top course will be put on so that the road itself will be finished. As in its current state, it's partially done, not completely done, Chair.
Thank you, Steve. I'm trying to avoid talking about parochial roads, really. I'm here all night. I mean, I could look outside here and we could go on for an hour and a half. So if we could just keep it a sort of generic conversation about repairs generally and budgets, rather than going through each ward and looking at each road. Thank you. Jane, have you got any comments to make, or shall I just throw it open?
I just wanted to say, I think Councillor Baker's after my portfolio really, in terms of highways. And actually, credit to him for the work that he's done in relation to this. Thank you. We are constantly trying to improve. And I don't think we have yet done the exercise, as he says, that Stockport has done in relation to the revenue, the implications of further borrowing in relation to our highways programme. I fear the results may not be quite as good in a different climate in terms of hills. There are not that many hills in Stockport, and certainly it doesn't suffer from the same winter weather conditions as we do, but certainly there's something interesting to explore there. In terms of the point that the petition makes about budget cuts, we were disappointed. We're a bit dropped on to see that the highways budget had been cut by central government. But actually, in some ways, we're undaunted that we're going to try and manage the budgets to try and squeeze every penny we possibly can get out of them. So I think in terms of members' comments, we'd certainly be very interested to hear them. I think we could, though you're right, be here all evening discussing individual roads. And I could offer my own ward perspective too. But be very happy to take some of the comments. But I think members need to realise that each borough is different in terms of its geography, its weather, the historic investment in roads. And we really are trying to improve. So comments very welcome. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I think we could be here all night as well. We talked about the budgets as well. I'm sure there's different views on where the pothole money has gone. Can I throw it open now to, I don't see people with a hand up actually. Anybody want to speak? Oh, Paul, it's up my screen, so I'll pick you first.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd certainly welcome seeing some improvements to how we make repairs to potholes. Some of the roads in my ward are absolutely shocking and worrying, really, especially when we're trying to encourage people to cycle more. So yeah, but I'd also like to see the financial side to this as well, because obviously as an authority we like to invest to save. So it'd be good to see really how much it's actually currently costing us to repair potholes compared to what it could potentially save us if we do actually invest in some of this equipment. One of the things, just slightly going off away from the roads, but the pavements seems to be a bit of an issue as well at the moment, and I'm getting a lot of complaints regarding the surfacing that's been put on pavements over the past few years. That a lot of that's actually starting to crumble and come up and become quite unsafe underfoot. So I'm just wondering, really, if Stephen may be able to answer what's actually happening with that, or Jade might be able to answer what's happening with that. And is there anything we can do with regards to the company who actually laid this, whether they're going to come back and make it good in the places that's really poor, to be honest?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. I think it's a valid point that we do seem to spend a lot of money on redoing what's already been done. It's a common theme you hear everywhere. Regan, I'll let Steve answer that in a minute. But Regan, have you got a comment? Do you have your hand up? Or is it
I do know, but to be fair, Audrey was before me. I think probably half a dozen as well. So I'm happy to wait my turn.
Right. Okay, Audrey.
Thank you. Yeah, two comments. I remember at the first scrutiny that I went to, we were looking at the highways review, and there was mention then of a machine that was going to fill potholes. Did anything happen with that? And the second question, well, actually two more. One's a comment, is would keeping cars off pavements not help with the damage done to a lot of our pavements? And the third thing I just wanted to mention was car parking charges. Do they go to highways? Because I think we should increase our parking charges so that highways can get some more money.
Well, I'm sure that's a very contentious debate, but can we not have it tonight about car parking charges? But I accept your point, yeah. Steve, do you want to address that earlier point about footpaths?
Yes, Chair. I believe that Councillor Bellinger is referring to what's called slurry seal, which is a kind of a temporary fix, which we don't now use in the programme simply because of the issues that Councillor Bellinger has highlighted. So basically, if you put slurry seal down, you're probably looking at a lifespan of around about 5 to 7 years. And then beyond that, it becomes very difficult to repair. So we would prefer to spend money on better treatments, which costs more, means that we can do less, but the repairs themselves do last longer.
Right, okay. Regan, okay, you're ready now. I've got you.
Thank you. Just lower my hand. Right, great stuff. Thank you. It's a thing that we've had before. I mean, I remember it was a couple of years ago, if I remember correctly, that we got some extra money for potholes from central government, but the manner in which it was put into various pots was at best opaque. I'm just wondering, in terms of an initial suggestion, whether there is a more transparent way of demonstrating how pothole money and, well, road maintenance money can be broken down and presented as much as anything else to help prevent unnecessary argument and general frustration, wondering where on earth, what money is going where. As a by the by, if I can also pick up on Audrey's comment about pavement parking, yeah, in principle it's not bad, but I'm only looking outside my house into the street, which is in Brickhouse Ward, that if people don't park on the pavement, the recycling wagon can't get up, nor can a fire engine, to be on that matter as well. So it is a more complex issue than initially presented, and I'm going to spare my comments with regard to car parking charges for another time, Audrey, if that's all right with you. But yeah, primarily the primary point I wanted to make was about the transparency and, well, the lack thereof of budgets and how they're spent with regard to that, from both from money that's allocated within our own budgets or allocated from central. Thank you.
Rosine and Guy, were your questions about budget or were they about other things?
Just a general comment, Chair.
Well, can I ask somebody to deal with the budget question first, then we can move on to whatever yours are rather than muddy the waters. Jane, do you want to take the budget, or shall I pass it on to? I don't know who else is here.
Stephen was putting his hand up, and
Stephen,
knows what car parking income can be spent on, etc. So I'll leave it to him, Chair.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the budget headings that Councillor Reagan's just, Councillor Dickinson's just talked about, there is full details of the income and the outgoings within the Highways Capital Report. As I said, that report is currently published. It's going to Cabinet on the 7th of June, and it gives full details of government grants that come in and the way that they're allocated to the various headings. So there's more information on that. And yes, certainly under the highways, under the Road Traffic Act, rather, Road Traffic Regulations Act, basically any income that comes in from car parking charges, it has to be spent on either transport schemes, highway maintenance, and the provision of the service. So we can't actually make a profit, but we can reinvest any excess funds that we get into highway maintenance, transport schemes, etc., etc. In terms of car park paving, the government's recently carried out a consultation exercise across the country about whether or not they should introduce a complete moratorium on car parking on pavements, or whether or not they should include an ability for local authorities to designate certain areas as being able to hold car parking on the pavement or not. So that consultation exercise has recently finished. We've spoken about it at a wider level on a chief officer basis, and we have put in a response on behalf of West Yorkshire as a whole, suggesting that it would be appropriate in some instances to allow car parking, specifically for the questions, for the points that were raised earlier about access, about there not being a one size fits all, and especially if you think about Calderdale's topography. The fact is that many roads are ex-Packhorse trails. Parking is very limited. So to take away the on pavement provision entirely would lead to other difficulties.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for that. Can I just ask, is repairing a pothole then a capital cost or a revenue cost? Because I'd have thought that a pothole was a revenue cost rather than a capital cost, but I could be wrong.
Councillor Caffrey, you make a very good point. The pothole fund is capital funding, but it does actually get spent on what we term large patches, which are effectively pothole repairs. The pack and wax that Councillor Baker referred to earlier are generally funded from the revenue budget, and they support the Section 58 defence rather than actually ensuring that the road condition is improved.
So do we know, I mean, sorry, I don't want to monopolise this conversation, but do we know how many potholes we have to mend and how much it costs to repair? I mean, is that sort of thing recorded? Is it ring fenced, the pothole money, or is it just is it like a sort of a responsive type repair with no budget?
Pothole monies do get ring fenced to highway maintenance, and the amount that was awarded for this year's pothole fund, councillor, was 2.187 million, but last year we got 2.466 million.
Right. So we actually got more from the government last year then? More.
Yes, Yes, there's been a reduction in highway maintenance monies across Calderdale of £1.38 million this year. But that's in common with the country as a whole.
No. Well, no. The point I'm making is if we repaired the potholes, I guess we don't need as much money. But that's another debate, I suppose. No, that's fine. Thanks for that. I'll just give me some idea. I was struggling with the capital budget and the revenue repairs, but sorry, Guy, I've got Guy and then Rosine, is it? Yeah, please, Guy. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I, of course, am very new to this, and I don't know the fine detail of the council road repair strategy, but year on year, the roads are degrading and getting worse. And I think we've gone a bit beyond just potholes now. There's whole stretches of road where the top surface is just coming off. What I would like to see done is a revision of the council strategy on road repairs, on rolling road repairs, and the way in which they are repaired. There's been an awful lot of chucking hot tar down and chippings on the top and leaving it at that, which just does not last. So my question is, or my opinion, if you like, is that don't just think about potholes, think about the rest of the road damage as well, and doing some proper tar lifting and new tar put down, not to mention the levelling of the ironworks in the roads, which can be as bad as potholes for any motorcyclist or cyclist. So I'm like a lot of my residents, it's quite high on their list to get fixed and put right. So why don't we do it? Raise the importance of renovating the roads.
Thank you. I've got Rosine and I've got Stephanie to speak, and then I'm going to sort of wrap it up if that's all right. Rosine.
Thanks, Chair. It's Roisin. I know it's a difficult Irish name, I know, but well,
I can't. Mine's Irish, so you know.
It's just a general comment that I think Guy's right in the sense that our residency roads they experience them, they see them, and sometimes use them to judge the effectiveness of the council. So, you know, from a resident's point of view, I think we all know that they're really important. And Councillor Baker's raised some interesting points. And I suppose going forward, I would just like to understand, so not tonight, but in the future, how we're going to manage the balance between quite a significant reduction in budget and innovation. Because obviously, if your budget has been reduced, but you have to maintain the same level of service, the only way to do that is through innovation, I'm assuming. So it'd just be really interesting in the future to see what that balance has been and if it's worked out.
Thank you. Councillor Stephanie, is it Stephanie? Sorry, my eyes aren't as good as yours. It's Stephanie, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah. Hi, thank you. I have read all the write-ups about all the different machines that James sent through to us. Only one of those said that the repairs would be permanent. I'm assuming that pack and whack is not permanent. Is the machine that we are trialling, is that the one that's permanent, a permanent road repair? I mean, that should save us thousands and thousands, not having to keep repeating the refilling of the same hole every year. So I'm hoping that the permanent one is the one that we're looking at. Thank you.
Thank you. Very quickly, Guy, because I'm not trying to wrap this up. Whose hand is that? Oh, it is Guy.
Right. Yeah, I just want to say I agree with Stephanie on that. The importance of permanent repairs, although they might be a bit more expensive to do, long term, they will save money and increase the quality of the roads. Thank you.
James, do you want to what I think what we need to do really is just summarise what what decision you wanted.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So I mean, I guess in some ways the capital you know, the capital papers come out, it goes to cabinet, so the decision's yet to be made on it. So I guess, like, what's in the petition asking for, if there's 200,000 in that capital programme going to cabinet, then I think, you know, the panel can obviously support the petition and then urge cabinet to back that paper and get that chunk of money for that innovation on the capital side of it. And then the third point that I don't want to get lost is just that bit of work. So we're just requesting that bit of work gets underdone to see where the balance lies between borrowing more money to do bigger road repairs and resurfacing versus the kind of constant patching, because there is a kind of mathematical exercise and calculation to see where the sweet spot lies there. And that was one of the things that Councillor Scullion mentioned. So I hope really that the panel can support this petition going forward, and we can get that new bit of machinery, and we can do that cost analysis to see where that sweet spot lies on the road repairs versus the patching.
Okay. I mean, I've not heard much anybody sort of not happy with the petition, the content of it. I think it affects us all. I mean, I'm happy to. I don't know if I can do that. Can I? Can I recommend it, or one of the panel members have to do it? Paul, do you want to recommend it that we just?
Yeah, I mean, you can put the recommendation forward as well, Chair. And, you know, we'll get somebody to second it.
Yeah, right. Well, I'll put it forward then. Okay. Is that a second there, Dave?
I'll second it then. Yeah,
no, yeah, seconded. So I'll have to push you on the protocol, won't I? Right. Well, thanks for that. It was a bit longer than I expected, but there was some good.
Hi, Chair. Sorry to bother you. You've both proposed and seconded. Is the board in agreement to move that forward as a recommendation to cabinet?
I need guidance. Thanks for that, Chris.
It's all right.
Anybody not happy with it? Right. Okay. Yes. Thank you. Just keep me straight. Protocol and regs aren't my strong point. Right. So can we move on to the next item, which is town deal and future funding? I don't know who's presenting this because I'm working off two screens here.
It's Karen, Chair.
Is it? Oh, right. Hang on, let me find it. Yeah, sorry. I will get organised for the next meeting.
Don't worry, Chair. I'm here, Karen Horton.
Yeah, hi, Karen. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks very much. If you could just present what's in what, you know, I don't need chapter and verse, but enough to give us a feel for what's going on.
Yeah, of course I can. So this is an update on the Stronger Towns programme, and really I'll keep it very brief because you've all seen the paper. I'm happy to take questions though. The good news is on future high streets funding for both Halifax and Elland. We've secured 69% of the bid that we submitted. Some towns across the country have received zero, absolutely nothing from a bid, you know, which took a lot of time and effort. So I'm really pleased to say that the team, both our officers and consultants, pulled off a really strong piece of work. So we've got a significant grant now for both Halifax and Elland. Slight concern is that the time frame in terms of delivery hasn't been extended, even though there had to be, through COVID and various other things, a delay in the start time. So we're in what's, you know, something of a contracted period. We've looked at it, we've programmed it. We think that it's still possible. We'll still be able to deliver what we planned. Key thing really will be around communication. So there's some great projects: public realm, refurbishment of the Borough Market, improvement of Southgate and Elland. But there will be disruption inevitably, and we've just got to maintain, you know, a really strong communications channel with our businesses, some of whom, of course, have been closed through COVID restrictions and now are opening. And soon we'll be asking them to not to close, but to have barriers in front of them, particularly where we're doing public realm work in the high streets. We've also I'm not able to give good news yet, but I'm told that there are deals imminent on town deals for Brighouse and Todmorden. We've submitted bids for in a town investment plan there for 25 million for both towns. In Brighouse, again, it's public realm, market redevelopment. In Todmorden, it's a larger number of smaller scale projects, including market redevelopment, improvement to the park, some active travel work, some affordable housing. So yeah, as soon as we hear, we're told it's absolutely imminent, then we'll be able to crack on with that. And again, same story really. We'll be delivering at pace, significant amount of investment, disruption, but for the greater good in the longer term. We've also got a smaller scheme which is moving along quite nicely now, a partnership scheme with Historic England in Sowerby Bridge High Street Heritage Action Zone. That's a grant scheme to improve shop fronts, and a cultural and creative programme. So, I mean, I think in summary, it's a significant amount of investment coming into the borough alongside other significant investment that's coming in for highways programmes and also my colleagues in major projects who are dealing with significant sums. So I think that the challenge will be around stakeholder engagement, communication and programming, but it's a nice problem to have. Happy to, that was a bit of a whistle-stop tour. I hope you've all seen the paper and I'm happy to take questions.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, no, that's fine. Thanks so much indeed. I just got one question on the, well, all of it, well, the Halifax Fund, the 12.5 million. I can't see a date. You said you have to spend it by a certain time. Have I missed it somewhere? Is it what is the deadline?
It's a 3-year programme now, so.
Oh, right, 3 years. Okay. So you think, is that doable, do you think? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
It's not it's not as long as we would have liked, but yes, it's doable. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right. I'll just open the floor to anybody who wants to comment.
Councillor Bellinger first, Chair.
Bellinger. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. A couple of comments, if I may. One is I do have some concerns with regards the businesses having to cope with disruption again. Whereas, and you've mentioned it as well, they've just come through COVID-19 where they've had to close or they've struggled for business and they're slowly trying to get back on their feet. And it could only take something that could put those businesses under, because they're very, very close to collapsing at the moment, some of them. So I'm hoping that we are sort of like, mindful of their situation and trying to give them that time that they need to sort of like at least pick themselves back up again, really. And then the other question I have is, West Vale is another sort of like up and coming place, and it's very close to Elland. And I think there's a lot of people from this part that go and use Elland and from Elland into West Vale. Is West Vale going to actually see some investment into it as well? Because it does actually come under the Elland town body. It's still sort of like classed as that. So they're my 2 points, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Can you address those, Karen?
Of course I will. Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of the disruption, yeah, we're absolutely acutely aware, and we've got a project ongoing. Some colleagues of mine doing heat mapping, where we're looking at all of the different investments and interventions. What businesses? It'll be literally door to door. What businesses are going to be affected? And a comprehensive communication programme to address that and to listen to them as well, and to understand the concerns that they might have. And we will minimise it as much as possible. In terms of the West Vale, absolutely. In fact, our project manager is working on the Elland programme, lives in West Vale too, and is acutely aware of that. Unfortunately, because the Future High Street Fund is very much focused on a high street, so it's Southgate and Elland is really we're slightly pushing the boundaries, but it's broadly Southgate, Square, and the high street. It's really about the funding. That's where we're going to be able to put the investment. So there won't be any investment from that project into West Vale. We're hoping it'll be a lever though for other partners, and that as we start to invest, some of the private sector will come on board. But in terms of specific funding from this for West Vale, sadly not.
Okay, thank you. Jane, you were waving furiously there. I missed you. Sorry.
No, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. I'll try not to take it to heart. I'm used to being ignored. Very sad. I would absolutely endorse what Karen Horton has said in relation to the timing, particularly in relation to Halifax, because of course there's a report I think coming to Cabinet on Monday about digital investment. And of course, some of that is laying cable and laying fibre. And of course, we've got the changes to the bus station, which will involve moving bus routes and so on. So we're really working very, very hard to try and dovetail all of those. But actually, I'm sorry, but not sorry, because at any one time, it's a bit like the roads. You have to dig up roads to mend them. There will be inconvenience. Let's not pretend that you can actually regenerate towns without there being some road closures and some inconvenience. But as Karen says, we're really working hard to absolutely minimise that and dovetail as many pieces of work as we can. I just wanted to say, though, in relation to the point about the smaller areas that Councillor Bellinger has made, and Councillor Baker has made it very well in the past as well. For areas off the borough which have got no town, as it were, no town centre as such, so most of North Halifax, for example, Worley, West, the wider area around West Vale, are of particular concern, and we're basically keeping those in mind in terms of the bidding opportunities that are coming up, and see what we can do for those areas outside the 6 market towns. I should also say that we've got money from government for each of 5 of the 6 market towns, and nothing for Hebden Bridge or Mileham Ride. They, of course, suffered very badly, the traders there, from flooding. So again, looking at other opportunities where Hebden Bridge and Mileham Ride, as significant small towns, very badly affected by the floods. And clearly they're having repair work and so on around the canal and the rivers. But that's different from regeneration of a town and solving some of the problems. So really pleased about lots of this money. We're going to have to work our socks off to spend it within the time available and to engage with people and make it feel it's their plans and their money. But the job is only half done if we don't actually address some of the other areas outside our market towns. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. I've got Audrey, Regan, and Rosina. I think you're first, Audrey. Do you want to go next?
Thanks. Yeah, I'd just like to say, I suppose that with so many projects going on, I'm just a little bit concerned about the workforce available. I know you'll be using contractors, but I'm just worried about, there's so many things going on across the borough. How is that being sort of accounted for? Second point, I'd just like to say, I think you've done a brilliant job so far with communication, and I really, really appreciate your input to the Soberbridge Development Board. You and Sarah have been a great, great asset, and I look forward to seeing more of you at the next ones.
Yeah, I think that's a valid point, that workforce, Karen. Are we convinced we've got enough people to deal with it? I can't get a bathroom done. It's been waiting for 4 months now, and it's just not habitable. So you can't get plumbers or sparkies anywhere. So are we okay about labour procurement?
I mean, that's a bigger question than just my responsibility. I don't want to kind of duck out of it, but we are acutely aware. I don't know if Sheila wants to come in on this one.
Thanks, Karen. Good evening, everyone. I think it's a legitimate challenge, Chair. There are some real tensions across the country, both in terms of procurement, supply chains, but also workforce. I think what's happening is that is an opportunity as well, and at the Cultural Recovery Board last week, John Rees from Calderdale College was telling us that intake for vocational courses, particularly construction, were the highest that they've seen in many years. So I think it is an immediate challenge, but I think it's one that we can prepare for in the short to medium term, hopefully, and make sure that we're recruiting locally wherever we can.
Yeah, okay. It'd just be shit to miss a deadline because of Labour, wouldn't it? But what can you do? So, Rosina, I think you were next.
I think it was Regan, actually.
Was it? Okay. Well, Regan. Sorry, Regan. You're next.
Sure, Rosina, that's fine. Thank you. Couple of things, really. The easy one perhaps to deal with is about sending the message. I'm thinking about the Brighouse changes that have been made of late, where the online chatter suggested that the rationale behind it was clearly understood, clearly not particularly well understood, yeah, basically a bit of a marketing push seems to be required for that end, because I say there's a lot of people complaining about it without fully understanding what's going on. The other point I wanted to make, really, this is a little bit on the vague side, I'm afraid, in that I was having a conversation with a member of the Brickhouse Town Board who was alleging that someone somewhere was trying to move money away from the Town Deal Fund. I just wanted to ask the question: the money is ironclad, ring-fenced for that purpose, and it's not going to get moved away. And the other final point, Pete, is I can do your bathroom for you next year if you want. Okay, but that's me. But as I say, with regards to the money being ring fenced, it was vague. It's at the edges of my memory. I would have to get the information from the horse's mouth. So I'm willing to come back if that's the case. Thanks.
Given how in demand you are, Regan, thanks for turning up. Dr. Scullion, you've been waving furiously again.
Yeah, I would absolutely refute moving money away from the Brickhouse Town Board. I'm mystified by that, actually. And we haven't got the money yet. We don't know how much we're going to get. It's up to 25 million. Who knows? You look at what other towns have got. It's been 11 or 18 or 23. We haven't got the money yet. But let me tell you, it's absolutely going to stay in Brickhouse. It cannot go anywhere else. In terms of the Brickhouse Town Board, there has been a bit of controversy. I was in Brickhouse this morning looking at the temporary construction of the parklets, little areas. And when that work is finished, construction work's going on at the moment, it will remove 7 parking places in Brickhouse. And they are temporary structures. We'll see how they play out and how they are received by the town, but we are listening to what people say, and so are the town board. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Rosine, I think you're next. Have I got your name right?
No, but that's fine. You will by the end of the year.
Yeah, sorry.
So it's fine.
I'll keep practicing.
You've got 2021 to get it right. I just want to say I think you've done a fantastic job, Karen, and the team. So I'll just echo what Audrey said. But as you know, you've mentioned stakeholder engagement, and I think you were referring to businesses, but there's obviously a wider stakeholder engagement around different parts of the community that need to be feeding into certain aspects. So I know, for example, I know a bit more about the Todd Development Board because I went as a resident to some of those, so I could see the process, which is a really brilliant process, and people feeding in ideas. But I just wondered if there was an opportunity to report on that in the future around the different people who've been part of that process. So as we know, in Halifax, we've got Parkwell, which is really diverse, big South Asian community, and how are they being consulted and used around things that might be brought into Halifax? So it might be some of the art installations, it might be some of the more cultural engagement practices, but I'm just conscious that obviously all of this needs to benefit everybody in the community and really celebrate the contribution that everyone makes to Calderdale. So it's just interested in that aspect of community engagement.
Yeah, absolutely, and I shouldn't have skirted over that because that it's certainly not my intention or what we have been doing. Is we've been working really hard around diversifying our engagement and making sure that the residents and indeed visitors from elsewhere that will be benefiting from any of these sort of physical and capital interventions, have an opportunity to steer that and have a stake in that. So yeah, I'm more than happy to come back and explain some of the things that have gone really well and others that are going less well, what we're trying to do. I'd say that Sowerby Bridge is a really small amount of money relative to these, certainly the town deals. But we're absolutely got community engagement and culture at the heart of that, and we're learning a lot of lessons that will then be useful for some of the bigger capital schemes. So yeah, really mindful and want to do more on that. In terms of just to echo Councillor Scullion, if I may, in relation to Councillor Dickinson's comment. Again, I'm not sure where that's come from, but we will be in a very clear heads of terms and then legal contractually obligated to deliver exactly those schemes for the people of Brighouse. So yeah, we can reassure you about that.
Thank you for clarifying that. I can't see any more hands or waving, so can I just say thanks, Karen, for that.
Welcome.
Some good news in there, and let's hope it works out. But thank you for answering the questions.
No problem.
There's nothing to vote on there, is it? It's just a report. So moving on, I'll go back to the agenda. Where's it gone? I'll find it somewhere. Sorry about this. Can't beat paper, can you? Side out. What's next on the agenda, Kirsty?
It's regeneration strategy priorities for the year ahead. It's Councillor Bullion and Sheila who's going to lead the discussion, Chair.
Right, okay. Well, that's fine. Do you want to fire away while try and find my agenda papers? Who's starting, Jenny? Who's starting?
I'm starting, Chair, and I will be mercifully short. I've got 5 things I want to say by way of introduction to the regeneration work in the coming year. And then I'm going to hand over to Sheila, who will also deal with all the questions and discussion. First of the 5, you may be completely unsurprised to hear, is about COVID, in the impact that it's had on the Directorate, good and bad actually, and how that plays out over the coming year. What it's meant is that we've actually got much more of a focus on recovery in terms of the local economy and businesses and jobs and skills than perhaps we would have done before that. And very specifically, a focus on construction and managing construction. And it came up earlier, interestingly, in the discussion at this committee, because there are a number of things which make construction in the year ahead rather different. First of those is construction inflation, which last time I heard was going, about 5% plus, depending on the materials. So projects that we had in hand that were due to come on stream, we are actually looking at those being more expensive, and that's just how it is. The other thing, and somebody raised this earlier, was a question about demand and competition for contractors. Contractors, architects, QSEs, everybody, of course, is applying to the various government funds, the town funds, etc. Everybody's after the same consultants, the same procurement folk, etc., etc. And of course, within Calderdale, as you know, we are a small authority. So our capacity to manage those things ourselves, we don't have people kicking around, twiddling their thumbs, waiting to be asked about, say, new bridges. We have to hire in that specialist knowledge. So COVID has made some of those big projects really look quite different in the coming year. So that's going to form a context for the detailed work. The second thing is about our success. We have been fantastically successful over the last 5 years in attracting external money from all kinds of places, heritage funds, general government funds, etc., West Yorkshire Combined Authority. Our success in bidding for and procuring those funds means that actually this coming year has got to see a focus on delivery. Delivery. We've actually got to get some of those things out of the ground. Been lucky that construction could carry on during COVID with social distancing and safety things. So some projects like Northgate House, we delivered the new college, and indeed we've recently delivered major projects in schools. We delivered those things during the COVID period, which is no mean achievement, but nonetheless, you've heard from Karen about all of the Towns Fund work that we've got coming up. Actually, the focus on delivering against really, really punishing deadlines. You think how long it takes to do public procurement against the rules that we have, then appoint contractors using the rules that we have, and then actually getting people on the ground delivering. Delivery has really got to be a big push for this coming year. The third thing I wanted to mention in my list of 5 is about the mayor. The new Mayoral Combined Authority, MCA, are the initials we're having to learn. It's a game changer, really. It's a game changer for each of the 5 local authorities in West Yorkshire, because we have a mayor. The mayor has the ear of government in a different way from council leaders, has also negotiated, of course, the new gain share as part of becoming a mayoral combined authority. And we need to be positioning Calderdale in that bid for money for skills and training and apprenticeships, particularly bidding and positioning ourselves in relation to transport monies, in relation to housing monies, and opening them up of difficult sites. And goodness knows we've got enough of those in Calderdale, old brownfield sites which need quite a lot of money spent on them, sites where traffic access is difficult and so on. So part of the work of this coming year is actually to work out, where does Calderdale sit in relation to the mayor? And we will charm and influence and press the mayor for everything we can possibly get for Calderdale, but it is a different game. So that's part of the context for the coming year. The other thing is really bidding and balancing that need for delivery with the need at the same time to look forward. And in some ways, it's what local government can be very good at. We can be very reactive, and there's a little fire emergency and you have to mend things and potholes, and you put that out and you fill the pothole and so on. At the same time, a good local council also looks forward, because actually you need to have a sense of stewardship. You have to spend the money now, but you also have to think about actually what do we need for 10 years time and 20 years time. Think about the consequences of those things. The new leisure centre being a case in point. We will be borrowing the money for that. We've got no external monies for it to speak of, apart from a small amount from Sport England. So can it be the best that it can be for the money that it can be, and will both last a long time but be flexible at the same time? So balancing that delivery and now, but at the same time trying to keep that strategic eye and looking forward, is also the context. We can't stop moving forward. But it's tough with the bidding processes that the government are doing at the moment. They're a bit of a beauty contest. Councils bid against each other for the money. It absorbs a lot of the officer capacity working up these bids. My final point really is about the 3 themes of the council: the thriving towns, and we've touched on the towns funds, the addressing inequalities, and that means our focus cannot just be on towns. It's got to be on groups of people, on areas without towns, as we've mentioned already, and also the declaration of the climate emergency. What do we do now that actually makes climate change, carbon reduction, emissions worse instead of better? So it's balancing all of those things, and that's in some ways the last thing I want to say about this is the context for the coming year in terms of the overview. And as I say, Chair, Sheila she's not going to go through the whole, you'll be pleased to hear, the whole of the Regeneration Directorate stuff, but she's going to just give some of the highlights of some of the things that are exercising us and the major projects. And as I say, she will deal with any questions, Chair.
Nice book pass. Right, thanks, Chair, appreciate that. Sheila, we'll let you continue from there and answer any questions we may have.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'll do my best. Good evening, Chair, members of the committee. I am Sheila O'Neill, the Director of Regeneration and Strategy. I do hope that my connection is holding up, because I seem to struggle a little bit on Zoom. So please feel free to wave if you can't hear me at any point. I think I'd just like to start with some reflections, really. I've been here just about 4 months now, and I worked previously in Bradford neighbouring authority, so knew a number of the team here at Calderdale, but from a distance. And I think sometimes it's easy to think of Calderdale as a small place. In terms of population, it is the smallest in West Yorkshire, but in terms of scale and geography, it's a big place. We've got a lot of roads to see to, we've got a lot of footpaths and bridleways, and we've got a lot of rivers to look after. So I think one of the things that's really kind of landed for me since I got here is the scale of the work and the dedication and commitment, both of the officers and the members, I have to say. And I think we started the meeting with the conversation about the local plan and the exchange. And I think all of that is driven from a place of real care and concern that we do the right thing for Calderdale, for the whole of the borough. And I think that's what I see very much in the work of the directorate, is that we're here and we have a role as custodians about keeping the place as special as it is today, but also taking it forward. So I think the points that were raised about the disruption, particularly in areas where we're going to see significant capital investment, places like Halifax Town Centre and Brickhouse and Todmorden, for example, we have to do that because, as Councillor Scullion said, we can't stand still, because actually we won't stand still, we will go backwards. And I think that's the challenge that we have to face, and how we communicate that, because what we don't want over this next 3 to 5 years of delivery is for people to feel that they have to avoid the town centres, or that they have to avoid going into places, because what we want is to maintain that level of balance of thriving places and a place that people can go and spend their time. So I think there's a huge amount of opportunity. There are challenges, but I think the assets that we have to work with, both natural and built, and the work that's in train at the moment, leave us in a really strong position. And I was just thinking and reflecting on Councillor Scullion and the comments about the mayoral combined authority being a game changer. And I think that's absolutely right. And one of my priorities personally is to build the strongest relationships we can with that mayoral combined authority and the mayor themselves, and make sure that we maximise the opportunities, and that we lobby where we need to lobby, and that we share the information we need to share. And I was in a meeting with a partner who I won't name last week, and they talked about Calderdale as being the hole in the donut that sometimes gets left behind. And I challenged back and said, what we need is for Calderdale to be the jam in the donut. Actually, we've got a lot to offer West Yorkshire and the mayoral combined authority. We've got a great environment to build on. We've got great people, great workforce, and building on that strength and making sure that we do win that beauty contest, that we don't focus on the negatives and the challenges. And I think what we're driven by a lot of the time is that need to attract funds. And sometimes that makes you focus too much on the things that are problematic, too much on the challenges and the negatives. And I think there are huge assets here, and you all know that, and that's why you're invested in the place and why you do what you do. And I think working with partners to make sure that they are sharing those messages, and that we have a consistent story to tell about the borough and its potential. And some of that work will come through the recovery work that we're taking forward now. So the leader, as you will know, has been chairing the Calderdale Coordinating Recovery Group, bringing together a range of partners from public, private and voluntary sector. And that will move forward to become our Inclusive Economy Recovery Board, chaired by a private sector lead, and taking forward the changes that we need to put in place to give Calderdale and its people the opportunity to live a larger life, and all of the things that were set out in the Vision 2024. And I think that's the focus that we've got to have. And when I talk to the partners on the board, it's about changing the dynamic of the relationship and being clear that this is not what Calderdale Council can do for you, it's what you can do for Calderdale. And that includes us as an authority, but it includes our partners. And I think we talked when Together Housing came to the meeting previously, that we've got to take those anchor organisations like Together Housing, like the college, other of the large major employers, the hospital, for example, and make sure that we use them as anchor organisations to support us in our ambitions around local supply chains, local labour, and all of those opportunities. And so I think it feels like a really important time, and the pandemic has brought lots of those elements into much sharper focus. It's made us think very hard about what good work looks like. We know that some of our communities have been particularly disadvantaged, in part because of where they live and the types of housing that they live in, and in part because of the types of work that is available to them, or the fact that they've not had work at all. So the pandemic has had very different impacts, and people have had very different experiences. And I think what we've taken from that is, and the work that Councillor Kavanagh led on in place in the last municipal year, is really important about people's lived experience and about how they feel being part of Calderdale as a community, and how able they feel to participate in the cultural, social and economic life. So I think that the work of the directorate really kind of brings all of those things together. There's obviously a very strong emphasis on the capital delivery programme, and a growing emphasis around the people and social elements. So we've got teams that work around skills. We've got the adult learning team who've moved into the directorate this year. We've got Fee Thirlbox team dealing with the business support and community enterprise and working on the skills agenda strategically. And I think by bringing all of that together, we can connect all of that investment with the people who live here. I have got a short presentation, Chair, if you don't mind me just sharing it. It just kind of gives a bit of structure to the recovery plan. It will only take a minute just to show you the slides, if that's all right.
Is it a shared screen thing? Or,
I think I've got to wait for Kirsty to let me do that.
Oh.
Is it not letting me do it? Well, it's fine. It doesn't matter. I mean, we can...
Should be able to, Sheila. Let me just double check.
It's saying disable screen sharing.
Try now.
There we go. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So it was just... Can you see that now? I'm not sure whether you can see what I can see. So it was just that was the introduction, really, and it was just to say that there is a really eclectic, diverse bunch of services working within regeneration and strategy. Some of them are quite inward looking in terms of the work that they do. So some of the work around estates and facilities management, implementing the future council arrangements around how we will work differently in the future, having reduced office space and be more efficient, trying to address some of those issues that we talked about around climate change and unnecessary travel and driving different behaviours and trying to make sure that we're being as productive as we possibly can, but also working with community members, and you will be seeing reports about community asset transfers and how we can support the communities to deliver more and support themselves. We've also got the housing and green economy agenda, so you'll be aware that a number of reports have come to this committee about the work of housing, and we've recently brought forward a homelessness and rough sleeping strategy, which will be followed by a housing strategy and potentially a Calderdale plan for homes. You will know that we've got really challenging issues with delivery of housing in the borough. We're the 13th worst performing borough in the country, and we've got to tackle that. And there are a number of reasons. The housing is linked to the economy and people's ability to live good lives. We've talked a lot about the economy in the past, and what we need is a borough that is able to attract and retain people, and part of that offer is absolutely about how and where people can live. So working to make sure that we've got neighbourhoods that people care about and that they feel comfortable in and they feel welcome in and that encourage people to have active lives is really important. So working more closely with our colleagues in public services around some of the behaviours, antisocial behaviour and the cleanliness and so on, but also working with public health colleagues about design and taking forward neighbourhoods that really people embrace and want to be part of. Planning, obviously, you're all very well aware of planning, and we've already touched on the local plan and some of the sensitivities there. But planning, the local plan sets the strategic blueprint for the borough in the future. It is so important we get that right. It will drive growth for jobs, and it's got to be sustainable growth, and it will drive our housing, but it will also protect places. So it's a balancing act. It is not, we need to approach that constructively and positively. And then alongside that, obviously, you will all be aware through your caseload that we deal with planning applications and enforcements. And so that's all about keeping and being custodians of the borough. Within the team, we've got the tourism function, which liaises very closely with our culture colleagues. Really a key focus for us now, the creative sector and the tourism sector, especially as we see more countries going back onto red and amber lists, is a real opportunity for us. We're seeing lots of staycations. We're seeing people revisiting their own places and being a tourist in their own town. So it's really important.
Sheila, sorry to interrupt. I think people are still on the first slide.
Are they? It's moved on.
Slide.
Sorry, can you not see them now?
Can only see.
Oh, that's a shame. Sorry, I'll stop sharing. I'll stop sharing, Chair. So it was really just. Sorry, it's just technically not moving on. I'm sorry about that. It was really just to say that we've got such a diverse range of services doing lots of the proactive, positive work that will drive the borough. And the way I see some of the teams that sit in there is that they are that engine around the creativity and transformation that we need to see as we look forward. And Councillor Scullion talked about that pipeline, future planning. we really need to do that work. And the danger is that we have to focus on delivery, because that will build our track record and our credibility with government and our partners. But we also need to be thinking about what comes next, and thinking about that in the terms of climate and sustainability. And so the way that we design our place in the future will have to be different, and we need to be as mindful of that as we possibly can. And here in Calderdale, obviously, it is so pertinent because of the issues we have with flooding and the environment more generally. So I think I will leave it there, Chair, because I'm mindful my connection is a little bit poor, and I don't want to delay any further and allow time for questions and discussion.
No, thanks very much. That was all very positive, and sorry about your presentation. I thought you were still on the first slide.
No, well, it was moving for me. Perfectly fine, thank you.
I didn't want to be rude, you know. Yeah, I mean, I think one of my concerns about the mayoral authority is that obviously the other boroughs are, well, boroughs of the part of West Yorkshire are a lot bigger than we are. How are we going to ensure that our voice is heard? I mean, Calderdale was once described to me as a detached appendix. Now, anyway, that's a compliment. It means we're not actually an urban sprawl that's joined on. But I didn't take it as derogatory, but I thought we're seen as somewhere over there that isn't part of the big conglomerate of West Yorkshire. So am I imagining this, or is it something we need to keep an eye on?
No, I think to be quite honest, Chair, I think Calderdale has more than punched above its weight over recent years. And Councillor Scullin has talked about how successful you've been in securing resources, almost too successful, I would say. You know, the programme of investment is absolutely huge. It is really, really significant, and a credit to the team. I think we are well represented politically. You know, the leader is very active and engaged, and as you will no doubt know, he's now leading on climate change and the environment for the Mayoral Combined Authority, and that is a huge opportunity for us to lead and shape that agenda. Colleagues across the Directorate participate in a number of officer arenas. So Stephen is very engaged in the Heads of Highways meetings. We've got Richard represented at Heads of Planning. I attend the Directors of Development and Economic Recovery work, and Heidi and the team are very actively engaged in housing. We actually drive a lot of the agenda. We are very proactive, very responsive, and very engaged. And I think we're seen to be good, reliable partners. And so I don't have any concerns in that regard. I think what is a challenge for us all at the moment is that the Mayoral Combined Authority is going through an ongoing transition, because obviously the Police and Crime Commissioner is being absorbed into that function. So there's a degree of change within that organisation that will impact, no doubt, but I'm very confident that our relationships there will be well positioned.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. Thanks, Sheila. Thanks, Jane. You know, very, very. I've got a lot of content there and a lot of ambition. I hope it can be delivered. Has anybody got any questions? I can't see his hand up. Has anybody got anything specific? Paul Bellinger.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Sheila. Really interesting, some of the things that's actually taking place there. So it's great to see that. And I think as Calderdale, we've always been known for having getting the fair slice of the cake, to be quite honest. We do quite well. And I think that's due to our tenacity at getting what we want in the end. One of the things that I did want to raise really is that our town centres, businesses, retail economy basically, as we all know, suffered quite badly throughout the pandemic. And due to that, a lot of people now have decided to do a lot of their shopping online, which basically takes that footfall away from the town centres, which then makes it busy. You know, it makes it difficult for the daytime economy and businesses. And I think one of the things we really need to look at is with regards residential accommodation within our town centres and small centres like Silverbridge and places like that. So that way, there's always going to be a bit of a constant footfall of people there living on the doorstep of these businesses that will actually help to keep that economy ticking over. So I think that's one of the things really that we need to be mindful of really as an authority and push quite strongly on really over the coming years. I just wonder what your thoughts are on that.
Thanks, Councillor. I think you're absolutely right. And the introduction of the rail station at Elland makes Elland a hugely attractive location. And I think that investment along the train line is really key. And the connectivity between the towns and other places is really important in terms of people accessing work and leisure opportunities. But I think you're absolutely right. As our town centres change, and obviously we're subject to the same global forces as everywhere else, and the same market changes, we do need to look at what the purpose is of these places. And I think actually, I've been into Halifax a number of times and around the borough, and in actual fact, some of the challenges that we are too busy in places. So Hebden Bridge was absolutely packed out when I was there the weekend before last, and I think it's about managing people, and we're in this transitional phase, obviously, as restrictions are easing. But I think that repurposing, about bringing buildings back into use, about giving people good quality homes, and part of our delivery targets in terms of housing is reusing existing buildings. It's the most sustainable way forward. It takes pressure off the Greenbelt and other sites, but it's not without its challenges. And you've got to make them desirable places to live. It's got to be somewhere that people will be happy to either live with a family or settle down and make a life for themselves. So all of the work that we do across the council makes that environment really key to people making those types of investment decisions.
Okay. Rosine, have you got your hand up? Yes, you have. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks for that, both Jane and Sheila. There's just so much information to digest. It's big and chunky and really interesting. I just wanted to make a comment on the fact that the challenges that we're facing. So we've got a significant part of our communities that have, moved far from the labour market, either because of COVID or because they were already there. So we've got a big piece of work around getting people into work. And then we've got a big piece of work around in-work progression. So trying to move people up from the kind of lowest rungs of whatever work they're in. And then that is set against a low wage economy. So we've got a significant amount of people that are, they're in work, but still poor. So people who can't, working really hard, but actually still can't pay their bills. And then against that is also the changing nature of work. So, the prediction that in 15 years, 3 million jobs are going to be automated. So people who are at the low, working in quite low income jobs at the moment, those jobs might not exist. So not only we are having to prepare people for work, but we're having to prepare people for work, new kinds of work, such as transitioning people into the green economy. So it just feels like a massive challenge that we've got, because it's not just around getting people within an inclusive economy, it's within an economy that's absolutely totally changing, and how we support everybody in the community to transition and prepare people, because there's no point, with our adult skills and development work, there's no point preparing people for jobs that are not going to exist. You already see it, you already see it in the supermarkets, don't you? And within a certain amount of time, there won't be anybody on the tills. It'll all be automated. Within a certain amount of time, there'll be lots of things that you go into that are just done by, the equivalent of robots. So I suppose it's just a big how, are we going to be able to use our position and our relationship with the MCA to think about these massive challenges that are coming for us around in-work progression, but also this new economy?
Thanks, Councillor. Do you want me to respond, Chair?
Yeah, if you've just got any comments. I'm not suggesting that you've got the solutions now, Sheila.
I've not got the answer tonight, Councillor Kavanagh, but no, it's something that really has concerned the teams working across West Yorkshire. And when we were working on the successor to the strategic economic plan, the SIF, it was. It was around how do you transition from one economy to another, and the nervousness, I guess, and what we've seen historically in the skills sector is that it responds to demand from people who will access courses, and that's not a strategic approach really, because people don't know what they don't know. But equally, you're relying on employers being able to think strategically about where their sector is going and where their organisation is going. And so we need to work very closely with government on this and be very clear about how we do stimulate jobs in new sectors and prepare our young people to access those jobs. So this starts long before people are leaving school, but it then needs to go right the way through, as you've said, Councillor Kavanagh, from being at school and then going into further or higher education, and then in-work training and adapting skills. And I think we've talked a lot in the past about transferable skills and skills that will be valued in the future. So we've talked about creative and cultural sector, wanting different skills to the types of skills that were traditionally valued, if you like. But also I'm talking to colleagues like Ian Baines, who's the lead for health and wellbeing, adult services, about the health and care sector and how we make sure that those jobs are good jobs and they are genuinely jobs where people can access at entry level and progress. So that social mobility and that ability to learn in work and progress either within an organisation or be able to secure work outside is absolutely key. But I think for me, one of the biggest things is you've got to introduce young people to work as soon as possible. So those work experience opportunities and understanding what goes on in businesses. I'm very fortunate in that I get to go out and meet businesses, and I've been out to meet a number of businesses in Calderdale over the last couple of months and seen some amazing things that I think if I'd been 14 and seen them, I'd have been doing something very different, you know. So I think making those connections between what work actually is, what goes on behind the gates in that business park, what goes on in that building is so important, and giving young people that sense of opportunity. And I know it's really high on Julie Jenkins' agenda in terms of children and young people and preparing them for the world of work. But we absolutely need to have that transition all the way through. And one of the challenges we've had in terms of the economic recovery plan is where do you draw the line of responsibility? So we've got to make sure that we're engaging with children and young people so that we're joined up on this, but also engaging really closely with the skills providers. You know, I mentioned earlier on that John Rees was talking about the demand from young people. It's a real opportunity that we've got young people who are keen to learn, keen to be in work, actually. And I'd be interested to see what the statistics are around young people accessing further and higher education for academic courses, because I think that vocational qualifications that have been resisted in the past are becoming much more attractive as people see that you can earn a good wage and progress in work without necessarily having had the degree level training that was previously expected. So I think it's a real challenge, and I don't have the answers, but I do think it's something that collectively we need to work with the Mayoral Combined Authority on.
Thank you very much for that. I've got Audrey and then Helen. And I might make these the last two if that's all right. Thanks, Audrey.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, really interesting. I think you've covered a bit in what you've just said about that overview. But I'm thinking about we need to be. I mean, we kind of need to future-proof things, don't we, as we go along? But we need to have a bit of flexibility, and I've found that to be a little bit difficult with my dealings with the council so far. And you think you hit on it earlier when you said that we've been almost too successful in getting funding. It feels that some things have just been thrown at us and we've had to make decisions really quickly. And I think if we're going to have this as a whole council strategy, it needs to be something that we can get behind and that we can promote and that people need to be engaged with. And then they will, I think we will find the positives, and I think we will, you know, everything will glue together much more easily if people can see that we're doing it from a well-being point of view, from a positive future for Calderdale. But I do think we need to have a joined-up approach, and I do think we need to engage much better with our stakeholders. But I think you've sort of covered it, and it is really exciting times.
Thanks, Audrey. Helen, are you there?
Yeah, somewhere.
You disappeared, but your picture's appeared. It's all right. Yeah, I've got you.
Yeah,
there.
no, I'm back. I don't know why I did that. Apologies, Chair. Yeah, just a couple of quick points. One thing I think that Roisin's already touched on, but that the divide between the digitally rich and the digitally poor was there before COVID, but COVID has made it so much starker. And there's always a danger that those digitally poor will get left further and further behind. So I think all we're doing in terms of skills and adult education and so on must try and prevent people being excluded digitally, because it seems to be such a danger, which I think we did bring up with COVID, of people getting left behind and never catching up. I'm sort of slightly disagreeing. I think it's great that we are looking at the vocational academic divide, and I think it's great, yes, that people are interested in vocational courses. But I always balk a little bit at people thinking education is just about work. Education is investment in lifelong development. And it changing you as a person as well as learning. And those who've lived through a few recessions before this will be aware of the impact on skilled workers when their skills were no longer needed. So I think it has got to be a lifelong investment, and in transferable skills, it does mean, education, developing the individual and not just looking at skills for work, because that makes it transferable, and a lifelong investment as an individual. And the last point I think I would say about the role of the voluntary sector, who I think very much want to be part of the solution as we move forward, and are hugely important in terms of the wellbeing agenda.
Thank you very much, Helen. Go, guys, your hand up now.
Yep. Just a quick observation, really. I mean, yeah, digital is important, but I was a plumber and builder for 25 years before I ever got into computers, and there's so much more different types of lives, you know, builders, plumbers, electricians. They're not heavily dependent on a digital world, as long as they get their work orders in, you know, particularly the sole traders, which I was. So I would just say let's remember there's another part to all of this that is not so digital.
I think that probably happened to me somewhere along the line. I've only just caught up. It's quite a learning curve with this. Jane, Sheila, thank you very much for that. You've provoked some good questioning, and some very valid points have been raised. So I share you. I mean, your confidence in the future is great. How have you managed to transition from Bradford to Calderdale? Has it been painful?
No, it's been absolutely fabulous, to be quite honest.
The culture shift, you know.
Well, as I said, I did know some of the team previously, and I have to say everyone's been tremendously welcoming.
Right. Oh, good.
Can I just say, Chair, that we interviewed Sheila, Councillor Lee, myself, the leader, and Councillor Baker, and we interviewed her on Zoom, and we appointed her by Zoom.
Oh, right.
And there was a new experience for us all. And so, as she says, she's been here about 4 months, about 16 weeks. I think she's doing a great job, and we're very glad that we appointed her. And actually, it is very useful to have a fresh pair of eyes to come and look at things. And I'm sure as the committee meets during the year, there will be many more discussions on these things. But the positivity is very welcome.
Yeah, good. So if you were interviewed by Zoom and appointed by Zoom, you are digitally inclusive, are you? Is that
Not so much that I can manage the presentations, Chair.
Anyway, thanks for that. Thanks for both the contributions, and thanks for everybody else for asking the questions. Oh, who's that waving? Stephen?
Thanks, Chair. What a wonderful meeting, and how very positive Sheila has been with all of she's said. But I just wanted to put a comment in just to demonstrate to Sheila that we all really like each other, that I agree with Jane Scullion's comments. Sometimes I think Jane and I would agree that we often disagree. But on that occasion, at that interview, I believe we made 100% a unanimous great choice, and good luck with everything that you have in mind for our wonderful borough. Thanks, Chair. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that's all right. No problem. It was a good positive contribution. I like to hear those. Right. Well, thanks everybody for that. I think we've now just got to look at the work plan again. So if you can stay if you want to, but those who aren't involved, it's entirely up to you whether you want to stay or not. It's panel members really, but if I can find it, I'll also get digitally included. So, Mike, do you want to lead on this? Have you got any requests already for things for the work programme or not?
Just very briefly, if I may, Chair.
Yeah.
And we quite deliberately put a very sketchy work programme in to you at the beginning of the year, because it's for you to decide your work programme for the year. Yeah. If I can just quickly go through 3 or 4 things that we've sort of got penciled in that you may or may not want to include. So this evening, Councillor Scullion and Sheila have talked about their directorate priorities and key issues for the year. Sora Zankudi and Councillor Lynn have agreed to come to the next meeting to do the same for the other half of the activity of this board, so that the public services side of things, and Councillor Patience is also sort of a cabinet member for you for this area of work, and he I'm sure will be willing to come and do the same sort of overall for the year, if you're willing to have that discussion. We have an outstanding issue that we were working on, putting on an agenda from last year, which was that members were interested in West Yorkshire Joint Services, which cover things like trading standards and the archives. And subject to your agreement, Susan Betteridge, who's the Chief Officer for the West Yorkshire Joint Services, has agreed to come to the August meeting. Right. The other work that's carrying on across the municipal year is that you and Strategy and Performance are doing this joint bit of work on green spaces. So some of you are involved in have had 2 or 3 meetings about our use of green spaces, and working with Andrew Pitts at officer level on that in particular. So that's a bit of work that's still in the work programme to clear up. 2 other brief points. I'm in the process of arranging meetings for the chair and deputy chair with Councillor Lynn and Zora Zankoudi, and that date's more or less fixed, and also with Councillor Scullion and Councillor Patient and Sheila, and we're still working on dates for that. That's an opportunity for the chair and the deputy chair to perhaps have some more detailed discussions about what might be proposed for the work plan next year. The last thing I'd mention, well, 2 things. We have to come back to the local plan issue that you raised at the start of the meeting. But the Cabinet on Monday is considering their 6-month plan for priorities, and other scrutiny boards have thought about timetabling a discussion about the 6-month plan in about 6 months to talk to the cabinet members about how that's progressing. So that's all I've got to say as way of introduction on that, Chair. Right.
So, I mean, let's get the main thing out of the way first. That's sort of simmering in the background. The local plan. Bits of the local. It's not a local plan as such, is it? It's the air quality reports. I think that's the one that's hovering about. Although I think we could do with an update on the local plan anyway at some stage, because I don't know about everybody else, but I think after a while you sort of lose track of what's going on, how many units are going up and where they're going up. So is anybody adverse to having an update on the local plan at some stage? You are, Regan, or is that a...
Sorry, I wanted to make a comment because the last time we had a bit of an update with the local plan, it was just under PERDA, and there was a lot of frustration.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm trying to avoid. I'm trying to avoid doing that because that's
it was that air quality issue that I think would need addressing ideally at the next scrutiny meeting, which I think Ian Hughes said would be the way forward. Ian,
yeah, can you guide us on this? I mean, obviously we need to get it in as soon as possible, but. What the 1st of July is, doesn't seem. Wait a minute, where are we? 1st of July. Is that our next meeting?
It is, Chair.
Yeah. Well, can we squeeze it in there? I mean, well, say squeeze it in. It could be quite a long subject. So, have we got the reports ready?
Chair, I think based on the continued information that is being sent out over the course of the last few days, and particularly a message that's been posted on the appropriate website and has been sent out to all those who are listed as respondees to the consultation process. There has been some indication given of the Council's position on the air quality report, and that indicates that the appropriate way of dealing with that aspect of the issue that's been raised, I know in recent days by way of email to members of this board, is for there to be a further consultation period that runs after the conclusion of the stage 3 hearings, in order for there to be further ability for representations to be made about air quality, and for that then to be considered probably at the stage 4 hearings that are scheduled to take place later in the year. I think it would therefore, Chair, it's a matter for the board, obviously, but bringing this back prior to that process being underway on the 1st of July would be premature, and might be appropriate for this board to meet at a time when that consultation is live, so that it can contribute to that process if it feels appropriate that it should do so. So you may wish to. Sorry, Chair.
I'm just thinking about timescales, because when stage 3 going to finish, that's going to be some considerable time, isn't it? I mean, the thing is, I've got this is, as you know, this is festering away in the background. People aren't very happy. There's information flowing about here. It's going everywhere. You know, there's a lot of dissent out there about the history of these reports and how they're put together. I won't go into detail because I'm not qualified to. I've not read them word for word, so I'll not speak out of turn. But clearly, there's a lot of concern out there that these need to be out in the open and discussed, and something needs to be sorted out. So if we wait till after stage 3, this is just going to simmer and simmer and simmer. But I'm not. I mean, I'd like to get something, if we could, if you've got time at the next meeting, even if it's not a detailed discussion, an explanation or some guidance from either planning or the chief executive, somebody, as to where we are with this, just to calm the waters a bit, because it's not going to go away.
Well, Chair, the statement that's been made this afternoon on the council's website does give the explanation of the position with regard to the various versions of the air quality report. Now, obviously, there may well be a view expressed about that needing to be further clarified at some point, but the appropriate position and the appropriate step for doing that would be as part of the submissions that take place in response to the further consultation process that has now been announced as going to take place as part of the process that will run for the local plan over the next few months. So again, the issue that this board will face is a view that contributing to it in any other way other than through the proper process would be stepping on the toes and running counter to the local plan inquiry process that's underway at the moment.
Right. Well, first of all, I haven't seen the council website. I haven't seen what's been updated. So
Appreciate that.
I'm a disadvantage here because I just haven't seen it, so I can't possibly comment. I suspect we're not going to get much consensus here. Joe, did you have something to say, Dave, or was it about this particularly, or before?
Yes, it was actually, Chair. Yeah. I agree with Ian. I can't see any merit at all in talking about the local plan at the next meeting when it's in the hands of the inspector anyway. So I think we should wait until the inspector has ruled on, which will probably be about 3 months' time, and then probably bring it back. But I'm not sure what influence we can have on the local plan, and it's actually gone to another level, isn't it? It's been decided by planning inspector, not by us.
Yeah, I don't think it's about the local plan. I think it's about the air quality reports. Am I right, Ian?
Well, Chair, the representations that are being made at the moment are about the version control that it has been commented on by various individuals and groups about the process that was underway, allowing groups to consider a document which is stated to be, in their opinion, not the appropriate document. There's been an acknowledgement from the council this afternoon. I appreciate that members may not have seen it, but explaining that an unfortunate version control issue has arisen, and as a result of that, there is going to be a further period at an appropriate time when all those people who have indicated that they wish to contribute to consultations on the local plan, and particularly on this aspect, can make further representations as a result of being in possession of the report that is to be considered as the definitive version. There will also be further information given in due course following the council's consultants' further explanation of why there were changes between the version that appeared and the version that is relevant and is the finalized version. And that is the appropriate way of dealing with that, through a consultation process, through the ability for people to understand what is the document that they are being asked to comment on, and at that stage, that will then clarify the issue and will be able to be put through the local plan process in the most appropriate way.
Okay, thank you. I've got Steve waiting. Do you want to speak now, Steve? I've got a suggestion, but I'll let you.
Thanks very much, Chair. And forgive me, I'm not a member of the Place Scrutiny panel, but I do have an opinion on this, and I greatly respect any opinion given by Ian Hughes. The reason that there's pressure for this to be brought to the Place Scrutiny meeting is it's not about the local plan anymore. This is an argument about the council's performance with a certain aspect and a report that has been not issued in a proper manner, which has led hundreds of activists up the garden path with making their plans to continue certain aspects of their opposition to the local plan. It's about the outrage that is felt by, and I'm saying all along the Lower Valley, people representing thousands of residents that are absolutely incensed about this. And the only way that there is to talk about this, not as part of the arguments about the local plan, but procedural issues that the council have followed, which allegedly are not right, is to clear the air by having a debate. And the only place that we're aware of where this can be debated in a proper manner, in an impartial manner by this group, but robustly scrutinising it, we accept that, is through Place Scrutiny. And indeed, we try to bring this forward to today's meeting, and that proposal
I'm
was
reluctant
denied.
to interrupt Councillor Lee, but you indicated at the outset of this meeting that you weren't looking to have a debate on an item that isn't on the agenda of this board. And
agreed.
You made it very clear that you wanted to have a discussion around timetabling as part of the work plan. And we're at risk, unfortunately, of starting a debate that you didn't wish to have.
Okay, I agree. I don't wish to have it. I wish to get it scheduled onto this panel as soon as possible so we can have the debate. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. So, Audrey, did you want to say something before I finish?
Yeah, I just like, will we be able to see where the acknowledgement is? Because I just had a look on the website and I couldn't see it. But also, will it be possible for councillors to get an answer to some of those questions privately?
Well, you've taken the words out of my mouth, because what I was going to suggest was, because I haven't seen the website. I've had other members seen the comments on the website. I haven't seen them. So I don't know whether it addresses the concerns or not. So what I'm going to suggest we do is we all have a look, because I need to get this on the agenda. I do need panel support anyway. So, you know, and then we'll do some, we'll have a chat in the background with Mike, and we'll email all members and get an opinion, if that's okay with as a way forward, because we can thrash this about all night and not going to get anywhere. So, and I have got limitations under the terms of the Constitution as well to deal with. So it's not something that can be written. Paul, did you want to say something?
Yeah, Chair, I've actually got the comment open here, the email open in front of me, if you want me to actually read it for transparency and for clarity.
Well, is it a long one?
It's not, no. I can read it out so at least members then are aware of what's actually being said.
Well, if you can make it brief, but I'm not sure we can debate it though.
I'm not debating it. It's just so people know what's being said.
I just
in fairness to the debate that I've just indicated, Councillor Lee was looking to start. I think a response that then is given, which would further start that debate. I think the suggestion that you've made as to how this is dealt with, by way of members taking an opportunity to consider the council's response to what's being said, and then for there to be a process undertaken to consider the most appropriate time for this board to pick this matter up outside of this meeting would be the most appropriate. I think with respect to Councillor Bellinger, I understand the need that he's looking to do to clarify what's been said by the council, but that again would, I think, be part of a debate that you've indicated you don't wish to have in this meeting at this stage?
No. What I'm saying is I want people to fully informed about what we're talking about. I'm not trying to brush it under the carpet. I want it sorted out because it's going to fester whatever happens.
I understand.
So we have a debate sometime. It won't be cleared. But I don't want to make a decision now based on a report that nobody's seen, or an email nobody's seen. You just can't do it. And I
understand. So the very sensible suggestion, Councillor.
Can I leave it there, and I'll speak to Mike, and we'll get in touch with all the members. But I do, obviously, I want to see it sorted, but it's how we do it and when we do it. Is everybody okay with that approach?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. Mike, what else? Sorry, I'll reopen the conversation. I've got bogged down with that. Other items for the work programme from anybody? We're on work programme still, aren't we? Yeah. Paul.
Yeah, I seem to have taken over this meeting tonight. I'm sorry. One of the things I'd like us to have a look at as a place scrutiny board is with regards the issues to litter that we have within our rural areas and borders of what I'd call as no man's land between each boundary, like Kirklees and Calderdale and Lancashire. There's a lot of complaints come in over the past months, and I've seen many images regarding the build-up of litter at the side of the road. I think it's something really that we could do with maybe looking into as a place scrutiny board as to what we could do. Any recommendations?
Yeah, I think normally do put something on here about litter and fly tipping as a report and an update from Safer Greener or whatever. So I suspect everyone's okay with that. If we put it on as a collective item for across the borough, litter and fly tipping as a subject, because it is quite an emotive subject and it affects us all. So can we make a note of that, Mike? I don't really want it on the timetable. It's up to when the officers can do a report, really. What about a capital report? I mean, there are some ongoing projects going on, like Northgate House and a few others that people ask. Well, they ask me. I don't know if that's other people. What's going on? Is it being used? Is it open? And other general capital projects. Can we have a sort of an update on ongoing capital projects as a subject? Is that all right? Is everybody okay with that? I mean, people do get asked questions about things happening in the town centre, and nobody seems to know what's happening. So, Rogine, was that better?
You're getting there, Chair.
Yeah, I got Sheila's name all right, didn't I?
I'm probably going to say this, and then Mike will tell me it's not this board. I'm wondering about something. It relates to the voluntary community sector. So during the last year, loads of mutual aid groups have popped up and COVID support, and there's a big kind of debate within the voluntary community sector around the sustainability of some of those groups, what they're going to be doing next, what the support is going to be from the council in terms of the recovery plan. So I'm just wondering if there's something that is around kind of analysing what's gone and what's going to be coming forward in terms of the voluntary community sector portfolio.
Yeah, I mean, it's up to the panel, but I would have thought that was in the people portfolio. I could be wrong, but I mean, Mike, what do you think?
That's why I wanted to check.
Yeah,
no, that normally comes here, actually, Chair.
Oh, does it?
And Sora manages the relationship with the voluntary community sector.
Well, okay, then that's fine. That's if it's in our portfolio. I wasn't sure. I'll need to brush up. We don't need to fully populate it tonight, but it's just the thing is, the more we put on, the more officers give officers more time to prepare stuff. Audrey.
Oh, I didn't realise I wasn't muted. Oops. I've got three things. One, we were going to talk about the Shay. That was on our previous work plan, and I just think that would have been quite interesting as they've just opened up to visitors last week.
I agree with that. Yeah.
The second one was just reviewing. We did the social housing review, and just to find out whether the social housing providers have taken on, what the impact of taking on our suggestions has been, because I know Pennine Together Housing has signed up to the the charter, the engagement charter.
Yeah.
So I think it would be interesting to find out how that's going and whether or not what improvements they've made. And the last one was one that we suggested last time, and that was around transport, the impact of COVID on public transport, because that feels quite relevant to the mayoral authority and just young people accessing work and things like that. So I feel like that's quite relevant.
I'm okay with those three. What's panel members all right with those? The share was supposed to happen last year, wasn't it? But it didn't. Yeah, Guy. Don't say potholes.
Oh, I'm quite interested in the social housing review. Am I on mute? No, because it's not something I'm familiar with, of course. And where can I get a look at it?
Well, it's something that I did with Audrey and who else was involved, Audrey? I can't remember. There were three of us, weren't there?
Jenny,
Sorry?
you and Jenny did most
of it.
of it.
Jenny, yeah. We put a report together. I'm sure it's somewhere. Mike could probably dig it out.
Well, if you can dig it out and just send me the document.
Yeah. It's just basically what Audrey's saying. You can't even follow up to that, which is fair enough. It's better than sitting on the shelf gathering dust. So yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Good. Thank you.
Anybody else got anything particularly pressing they want to get sorted? Have you got enough to keep us going there, Mike?
We've got loads there, Chair, and Sarah's just asked a question about the Shay in chat, but perhaps when you meet with Zora and her team later in the month, which is going to be the 28th of June, we can expand on those discussions. And the other thing to say is two things very briefly. One is members can email the chair and myself anytime with suggestions, and we can use that to build up a programme for the year. And I think Sheila was talking earlier on about connections, and there's a chairs and deputy chairs meeting of scrutiny chairs and deputy chairs next Tuesday, and that's a really good place to make connections. And for example, Sheila was talking about working with Julie Jenkins on preparing children and young people, and the Cabinet's got something on learning disabilities, and the Health and Wellbeing Board's interested in learning disability, people with learning disabilities and their employment opportunities. So I think Tuesday will be a real opportunity to pick up on those connections. And just to remind new members in particular that the work plans are a moving feast, and we adapt it to respond to things that crop up. But we've got loads there for a programme, and July and August already look pretty busy.
Yeah, we don't. Well, we don't want to. I don't think we want to overcook it. We'd rather spend more time diverting something than start rubbing our eyes after 3 or 4 hours, don't we? And talking of that, we've got 5 minutes left for this meeting. So, is everybody okay? Oh, do you want to speak? Sorry. Oh, you're saying goodbye. Oh, you're saying goodbye, are you? All right. Okay then. Right. If everybody's happy, we'll end the meeting. So, thanks very much for your participation.